Hey, Mark, do we really need all these bottles to be happy whiskey drinkers?
Well, that's a great question, Dan. Hey, this is Mark with The Practical Still. I'm here with Dan Cavallari. We have circled back up in the world headquarters, even though it's a wee bit warm.
It is.
We're going to be warm anyway because we're going to be drinking whiskey.
Yeah.
And that's a great question. I think about that a lot because I sit in my little whiskey room. I'm facing 80% of the bottles. Do I really need all those bottles to be happy? I don't think so anymore.
Yeah. I think at first when you get into this, and just having all those bottles is it's a playground. It's like, I can test this, I can test that. Eventually that wears off a little bit, I think. Yeah. Before we dive too deep into this, we need to fill our glasses.
We have come into the possession of a bottle we have both been dying to have. And you might think, well, that's not practical. That sounds like we're about to talk about an expensive bottle. And I guess in some secondary worlds we are. But again, a little bit of loyalty and a modest budget has gotten me into this little, I don't know what you call it. It's a club or something.
Yeah, like a special person club.
It's a way for one of the many ways that a store can distribute its allocated and hard to find whiskey. I think this is a wonderful way to do it. And in this particular round, the first choice on the list that stuck out to me was the Russell's Reserve 13-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, barrel proof, non-chill filtered. Oh my goodness, for us Wild Turkey homers, that is probably the most exciting thing to happen. I didn't think I'd get one. They just seem to be disappearing really quick.
Yeah.
And so I picked that. And believe it or not, I picked that over, and who knows if the way it works is you give them your top 5 and everybody's doing that. I don't know that I would have gotten, but Thomas Handy was on that list.
You passed on BTAC.
The Weller 12 was on the list.
Wow.
The Weller CYPB was on the list.
Wow.
They were on my list, just farther down.
Yeah.
And I got lucky. And of course, I hover on the emails when I know it's up close to my turn. And anyway, I came away with it. And it's $70.
And I'm pretty sure you regret nothing.
Not a thing.
Can I have a sip?
You may open that. Yeah, I opened it yesterday and did our little open the bottle on it.
Ooh, that smells good.
It is quite fab. You pour all you want.
I'm going to do a Mark pour.
You Dan pour it. You do whatever you need to do. T-shirts coming, by the way. Dan pour T-shirts and glasses with little demarcations on the side.
I'm excited for that. I don't want to. I know you've been dying to have this bottle. So, wow, that is fantastic. Just on the nose.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That was one of the things. So I just got back from a trip to Connecticut, and just to have in the room, I had a bottle of Eagle Rare, which is, by the way, also fantastic. And it was just regular on the shelf everywhere. So I grabbed a bottle and I was sharing it with my brother, and he sniffed and went, wow, Yeah. And just how incredible the nose of a whiskey can be in itself without even tasting.
I'm glad you've been talking for a few minutes because when I take a sip of that Russell's, I can't speak. It is incredible.
Wow. That's really good.
Every flavor in the world's in there. The sweetest oak you can imagine.
That's really good. And that's kind of like going back to our whole idea. We did a podcast at one point. If you had to pick one brand to stick with, and you chose Wild Turkey. And I think in the end, I can't remember what I picked, if it was Wild Turkey or not, but man, everything Wild Turkey right now is so good.
And that's kind of back to that thinking of, do we need all these bottles? And lately I just look at all the bottles, I don't call it a collection. I don't want to talk about how many bottles because honestly, I don't actually know. Isn't that good? So
good. I'm making faces.
Stop talking for a minute because we may need to cut this for a while and I'll go away and drink this and come back. But I don't know how many bottles are in the house, but they're not a collection. Right. Yeah, there's some of it I buy for economic reasons because it's on sale and I know I'm going to drink it.
Right.
And that's just accumulated. So a week or two ago, I looked at my wife and I said, I'm not buying any more, whatever we call air quotes, regular whiskey.
Right.
Until I drink all the regular whiskey. Because for instance, there's no reason to have 5 or 6 bottles of Elijah Craig small batch whiskey. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
Maybe it goes up a few bucks in price. It's just not going anywhere.
Right.
I don't need to have 15 bottles of Wild Turkey 101. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I want to focus what I buy on stuff like this Russell's 13. And I'll just, when I need a handle of Wild Turkey for whatever, I'll go get it.
Yeah. Well, and I look at what I've got going on right now, and I also don't call it a collection because, frankly, we're going to open them eventually. I mean, honestly, we have our whiskey nights and they all get opened and pulled out. So, but the only multiples I have right now is Booker's. And I just picked up another bottle of Booker's in Connecticut because I saw it and I said, I can't get this anywhere for under $250 in Denver, the greater Denver area. This was on the shelf for $79. I said, you know what? I'm going to grab this.
Yeah.
And it was a batch I didn't have. But honestly, that's the only thing I have of multiples right now. Because frankly, I don't need it. And honestly, I've been, I went through early on like this cycle of just like buying everything because I wanted to try everything. And I feel like I've graduated from there, and now I know more what I like. And, the more I drink, the whiskeys that I know I'm going to try and be like, oh, I know this isn't my thing. I feel like I should try it just because it's new. It never really, it rarely ends up being something where. Do
you think of it? I know a lot of people think of it like I've got sipping whiskey, I've got cocktail whiskey, I've got this whiskey that I bought by accident that I'm going to pawn off on friends that don't know any better.
Yes.
Do you think of it that way?
No, I mean, I don't do cocktails really. Although I must say I did have a really good cocktail recently, which kind of got me thinking I might want to get into cocktails. May have turned the corner finally. But yeah, I definitely have, like regular drinkers, I guess is what I call them, where you got friends over, pull out those bottles. And then if it's like a special occasion or if there's somebody who's enthusiastic about whiskey and you really want to kind of like just wow them a little bit, I've got those nicer bottles and I'll pull those out. But yeah, I think I have regular drinkers where I'll pull them out and that's whatever, whenever.
Are there any protected bottles? Are there any that are just off limits, short of special occasions?
Not really. Although so like when we opened the George T. Stag, I shared that with everybody and that's great. That made it better for me, but now it's like kind of about halfway and I'm like, well, I'm not going to just bust that out for somebody who doesn't know anything about whiskey and won't know the difference unless I really liked that person.
Sometimes I catch myself thinking about splitting things because we do drink a lot of cocktails.
Yeah.
But I won't buy, some people will buy a bottle and they won't like it and they'll go, oh, it'll be good in cocktails. Well, no, it's going to make a crappy cocktail if you don't like it.
You don't like it.
Some people buy cheap bourbon to make old fashions with. I don't understand that. Yeah. The better the whiskey, the better the old fashioned.
Right.
So even when I catch myself doing that, I stop pretty quick because there are some bottles at the house. For instance, this Russell's. I may make an old fashioned with that just so I can say I did it because it's baller. Yeah. But I'm not going to do that regularly.
Yeah, right.
But I found enough Eagle Rare that's sitting in, that I do have stacked up, which I do think is one that I want to collect because it's gone up crazy in price.
Sure.
I'll make old fashioned with that. I recently opened some Blanton's. I made old fashioned with that. I've made Manhattans and Red Hook rye based cocktails and some old fashions with the Rare Breed Wild Turkey. with the with the 4-year-old Willet that's a $70-something bottle. Yeah. They make really good cocktails. Sure. So I think I have stuff that I bought because it was inexpensive on sale that I'll sip and I'll regularly make cocktails with and share freely. But then again, I tend to share everything relatively freely. Yeah.
I mean, whenever we have our whiskey nights, it's funny that there's like the Mark quadrant and the Dan quadrant, and the Mark quadrant's always much bigger. With what's being shared.
Early on, Melissa was a little worried about that.
Yeah.
You're just going to open all those bottles? Yes, I am. This is the funnest part of everything.
That's the best part.
It's the funnest, this.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Eagle Rare, I have a one-of-a-kind bottle.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's right there. You can kind of see it. It's the Eagle Rare, and it's got laser etched the practical still. So when we become rich and famous, we'll just sell that bottle for $1 gazillion, and that'll be our whiskey budget.
Well, you have a different approach to the future of this podcast than I think I do in my head.
I just envision us in velour, bathrobes in our mansions.
Can we get smoking jackets?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Nice. And then we have our Deer Hammer single barrels too.
Also one of a kind.
Which we need to open and drink.
Yeah.
I barreled right through that little Deer Hammer single malt.
I have an open bottle if you want some. It's good.
I liked it. I'll tell you one place it doesn't hold up is you drink it on its own. If you drink some big heavyweight bourbon right before it kind of
you'll be disappointed. And that's
tasty.
I'm kind of getting, going back to the whole thing with, do we need all these bottles? The one thing I do enjoy doing, and we've got, right in front of us, we've got the Boulder Spirits tasting. It's like 6 miniature bottles.
It's called the Adventure Kit.
The Adventure Kit. I like that. But you know, that is one area where I kind of am and still enjoying buying and trying, you know, and having them, because we've had a lot of young whiskey that's been duds. We've had some that are just remarkable. And I think that's been exciting. But I think when you get into just the general shelf at the store, that's been a little disappointing for me, just picking stuff and trying, because I kind of know at this point what my palate is and what I'm going to reach for. If I do have 25 bottles out on the table that are open, I know exactly what I'm going to reach for. But I do like the notion of trying these smaller distilleries that we've been trying, and Deer Hammer, I think, was really the pivotal moment.
An eye opener.
Yeah. I mean, and in the Divine Spirits, just,
that was a surprisingly tasty whiskey as well.
Because we have a tendency to look down on those bottles and say, oh, they're young, they're not going to be good, you know, and we have been proven wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's been a crazy eye opener to think of what these craft distillers are doing with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old whiskeys.
Right.
It's just delicious. And look, they do it on purpose. And that's the point. I would have, before, I just assumed, you know, you distill it, you age it, whatever. But it turns out there's an art to knowing and targeting an age. And then this whole idea of it takes them years to get to a 3 or 4 year whiskey, and it's going to take them years to get to a 5. And while they're doing that, they're dialing all that in, how wide their cut is, the barrel entry proof, the types of barrels it goes in, the aging in all these different climates. It was a different game when almost everybody was doing this in Kentucky.
Right.
As it moves across the country, it's a different climate in Colorado and Washington State and Florida and Alabama. Yeah. There's one in Alabama I really want to try, Detling. It's the only, not that Clyde May nonsense, Alabama style. This Detling is actually, a farm to bottle type distillery in, I think it's Atmore, Alabama, just north of where I grew up in Mobile. And he's been he's just built a new warehouse. He painted it black. A black warehouse in the sun of Southern Alabama. It's 150 degrees in there during the day. I mean, that's going to make some cool whiskey.
Yeah.
And it's been exciting, and I want to try more of that. But money isn't endless.
Sure.
And when you start branching out, I think it's still possible you're disappointed a little more than you're excited.
Yeah.
And if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't care. I'd just buy it all, but I don't. And so I do tend to stick to things that I know are going to work.
Right.
Sometimes, and I want to get your opinion on this, I'm going to try not to color your opinion, but here's a Woodford Reserve Double Oak, which I've always wanted to try.
Sure.
Sometimes you get disappointed even when it's one of the most respected distilleries in the world. Not that I was disappointed, because I don't want to color your opinion.
Sure.
But if you ever finish that Russell's, you can take a sip of that.
Yeah, I think, again, it really goes back to understanding your flavor profiles and the things that you like. But you can still get a dud. Like, there's definitely Booker's batches where I'm like, okay, it's still Booker's and it's good, but it's not my favorite. Yeah. But the other thing I think about with some of those startup distilleries, and as soon as I finish this and stop babbling,
that is so good. That Russell's is so good.
It is. I mean, I think I'm starting to really enjoy nosing my whiskey.
Well, I do that at home. It'll take me, I'll pour an ounce or two, and we're watching TV. Yeah, and I don't typically pour TV whiskey if it's super nice, but it'll take me 45 minutes or close to an hour, because a third or half the time I pick the bottle up, I don't actually sip any of it.
Yeah, right.
I'm just smelling it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't ever smelled the glass after the whiskey, you sip it, you leave it on the counter before you stick it in the dishwasher and it's kind of dried.
Yeah.
Sniff
Give
that.
it a sniff.
It's a whole different way to tell what was in that glass.
Yeah.
It's incredibly intriguing.
Yeah. What I was going to say about the younger distilleries is that probably 3 or 4 years ago, I went to Litchfield Distillery in Connecticut. It was Christmas. I went to see family. My dad and I did the tour, and they have a unique thing. They're distilling with rice. There's all sorts of, and it's all local. It's really cool. And I remember thinking, boy, this is a great story. This is a great distillery. The product wasn't there yet. Like, it wasn't quite ready yet. Like, it was young. And I remember thinking, there's some potential here, but it wasn't wowing me. It's been 4 years, 3-4 years. Yeah. I'm curious now how that has evolved. So to go back and grab one of those bottles would be great, And,
for sure. That'd be great. And you've evolved too.
Exactly. Yeah. My tastes are completely different than it was then. And so I think, going back and buying a bottle like that and adding to this collection or whatever you want to call it, that to me is worth it. But at this point, I look at what I have, and I've got some right behind me, and then I've got a barrel full of it down in my basement. I don't need multiples anymore.
Yeah.
I know what I like, unless there's something like this Russell's 13. And
I'll buy all of those.
Yeah.
If somebody goes, I got this case, as long as I don't think they're criminals.
Right.
I'd buy all of those.
Right.
But that's a different thing.
Well, the other thing too about hoarding is like I've got a Heaven Hill bottled in bond, which I bought for I think $40. You can't get that anywhere for $40 anymore. Yeah. So to me, that's another one that I'm like, oh, like I want to drink it, but I also want to hold on to it.
Yeah, but we started this whole thing about the practical side of the hobby because there's always something on the shelf.
Yeah,
and I think I believe that more today than ever.
Totally,
I could always find something that's really good, that's moderately priced that I can buy at the moment. And I think that. The few times in life I do luck into the nicer stuff, I think it makes me appreciate that a little more. Sure, I'd rather drink $400 whiskey all day long. Sure. But that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
And I think something like being patient and not chasing them and not participating in the secondary market, when I do get to buy something like this Russell's bottle at retail, it just makes that even more enjoyable.
And that goes back to the relationship building, and I was just telling you before we started recording that I bought one of the Cohiba Weller cigars. They did a collaboration, and the whole shtick is that, they paired it with Weller 12. You're supposed to smoke the cigar with Weller 12, and it's supposed to be the mind-blowing combination. So I bought it from Casey down at Spirits Wine Provisions, and he said, all right, well, you got to drink this with Weller 12. I was like, cool. I don't have Weller 12. And, Casey and I are now, buddies, and, he gives me, samples occasionally. He said, well, stop by my house. I'll give you a sample of Weller 12. So now I've got the Weller 12 to smoke my cigar with. And it just, honestly, that's the biggest thing, right? It's like transcending the whiskey discussion is like building those relationships and,
That's absolutely true. And it's fun too. But I think in this cigar pairing thing you're talking about, I'm pretty sure when you light that up, you're going to smell tater. That's what it's going to smell. It's going to smell a lot like potatoes.
Yes. Yeah. I fully expect that. And I have embraced that.
Well, while we've been talking, we've been sipping this Russell's Reserve 13. It is staggeringly good. I'm going to just say it. It's the best whiskey that's passed my lips, including the Stag. Including what has to date been my favorite, the Kentucky Owl batch one rye, which maybe that bottle has, I waited too long to open my last one of those. And now it's stuck in this, it's on a pedestal.
The transcendence.
Yeah. And something's got to happen to get it down and we just drink it. And I think this is it. I've now tasted something that I enjoy more than that bottle. Yeah. It was time to open that bottle and drink it.
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
No, not at all. I'm always here for you to open bottles and drink. So should I crack in this Woodford Reserve Double Oak?
I want you to taste that.
Or should we do the blind break?
We'll do the blind break after you taste that.
All right. So,
and when I opened that one and was, working on open the bottle, I thought, I've been saying a lot lately, I don't drink a lot of Woodford Reserve whiskey.
Yeah.
I've been saying that too often.
Yeah.
To keep saying it, because obviously I'm drinking Woodford Reserve whiskey. I never really know what to think of it. I never don't like it. I never feel like it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to try Double Oak. Double Oak is, their take on it is the whiskey ages in a typical barrel, whatever they normally do. Then there's a secondary, take it out of those barrels, it goes in a secondary barrel, which is heavily toasted, lightly charred.
Okay.
And it spends some unknown amount of time in that, and that's the double part of the double oaked. And it's similar to Old Forester 1910. They do something similar, although they do heavy char on the second barrel. But that's the concept of.
So this is a little bit of an unfair progression because we did start with the Russells, which is 114.8 proof, and this is only 90.4.
That's the standard Woodford.
So
did you get some water or something to?
Oh, I got to do this right. Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, you said it.
Should I eat some Cheez-Its in between?
There's no reason to eat Cheez-Its ever.
Hey, settle down. Woodford, I mean, you kind of summed it up for me too, Woodford I'm never disappointed in it, but I'm never compelled to go out of my way to get it.
Correct. Yeah.
So this will be interesting to see if this one wows me at all. Let me get some water here first. Enjoy my gulping.
Oh, wait, there's probably a copyright violation to hum.
Probably, yeah. Don't hum that. We're going to get sued by the ghost of Alex Trebek.
Nobody's going to sue us.
That's true. Nobody's listening.
Well, they might, but they're not getting anything.
Okay, so just sniffing this.
I'm gonna go with you so I can.
My first impression was sugar, like a syrupy, sweet kind of nose, but then
That's not awful.
then the oak comes blasting through. It's not bad. It's just it's like really sweet to me on the nose, which I tend not to like. So we'll see. It has an interesting nose. Like it's definitely its own thing.
Yeah, I hate to say what I'm getting now is like nail polish.
Yeah, there's definitely a little. I'm not gonna go nail polish, but definitely get that alcohol. Right.
Well, it's better than yesterday.
That's a lot of oak.
It's a lot of oak.
A lot of oak.
Yeah.
But actually, it's not unpleasant, and
It's sweet. I think that's the ode to the toasting.
Yeah,
The heavy toasting.
I think it helps too that it is a lower proof, honestly, because I feel like if it was a big, heavy, high proof thing with all that oak, all you would taste is the oak, and you'd be like, "Oh, get this out of my face." But this is actually
It's funny you say that because I think even the Old Forester 1910 is 93 proof,
right?
So it's not crazy high.
Exactly. Yeah.
This tastes better than yesterday. When I opened it yesterday, I made the worst faces in the world. It had, I like the nose, on oddly the cork, which I don't know why I still sniff corks. I sniff everything, but then the cork smelled great.
Garage, yeah.
The nose out of the bottle was weird. It was strange.
Yeah. How old is this? Is there age?
I don't know.
Okay. Because
It's at least 4 because it's a straight whiskey, a Kentucky straight that's not age stated. So it's at least 4. I'm going to guess 6 or 7 years old.
So the reason I ask is because the longer I'm smelling it, I'm getting that grappa again, like that sort of younger, astringent smell.
Today to me, it's peppery. Mm-hmm. It's still that Swedish oak, not Swedish oak, but sweetish oak from the toasting. Mm-hmm. But what's missing that was there yesterday was this mid-palate sensation of dank cardboard.
I don't get that at all.
I don't either today.
This isn't bad. I
thought it was awful.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
But I don't think this is better than like the Deer Hammer American single malt. And I feel like there's some similar flavors there.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought if you kind of like it's funny, it's bourbon, but to me it's just peppery, so it's got a rye-ish kind of vibe to it. But if you like that or a briny kind of single malt, there is some familiarity there. I don't know if that's a heavily toasted barrel that's lightly charred is maybe closer to what a used barrel might impart.
Yeah. I don't hate this. I don't think I would go out of my way for it, but I think if it was sitting out at one of our whiskey nights, I would have a glass for sure.
Well, it will be sitting out at our whiskey nights because I don't see me drinking much of it.
Yeah.
And I paid almost $60 for it.
Oh, wow, really?
So I'm a wee bit disappointed.
Yeah.
Hoping it changes when the bottle's been open for a while.
Woodford Reserve is one of those ones I just haven't quite.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out the dance moves with Woodford
The only
Reserve
one
yet.
of the, and I forget what they call them, Masters selections or whatever, those special releases. The only one of those I bought was that chocolate malted rye one, and I didn't like it because I didn't like the malted rye.
Yeah.
So I still like to try some of those because they're proofier and they're a little older, I think.
What's your relationship like with Knob Creek? Because I feel like that's another one that I tend to just avoid because there's other things.
I love Knob Creek, and apparently, it isn't on fire like a lot of bourbons and ryes. So Hazel's here locally has always got the standard, which the standard Knob Creek bourbon is now a 9-year age stated project, $28,
and you can see that there's the 12-year on the shelf everywhere.
No, it disappeared. At least I don't see it anymore. I have a bottle. I have a bottle I haven't opened.
Do you?
But it was everywhere for about 3 months. Right. And then one day I walked in and there was one left and I bought it. And that was the last time I've seen it on the shelf. And that was 6 months ago.
Huh. That might be one for me to embrace. And like, if I'm going to add to my,
I'm a gigantic Knob Creek fan and mainly because it's available and it's reasonably priced and they're starting to bring age statements back with the 9, 12 and 15. Now, I don't know. I think the 12 was supposed to be a special release kind of thing, but I think it's just going to be a normal.
I gotta confess something. I'm getting increasingly frustrated with non-age stated bottles. I don't know why. I would rather see like a list of various years of what they're blending than just see nothing. I don't know if that matters. Maybe it doesn't, but
well, I think if you like the whiskey, if there's well-aged whiskey on there and they choose to put an age on it or not, the fact that there's a number on the label shouldn't make any difference.
I know
the
it's kind of snobbery a little bit.
Well, but the problem is we just don't know.
I think I use it as like a frame of reference for a lot of things, like It's not that I would avoid a younger, like a 4-year whiskey. It's just that I want to know that it's a 4-year whiskey so that I know what to expect.
Well, I think what's happening is there's two things in my mind that are happening. One is that I think the industry may have miscalculated just a bit about 6 or 7 years ago, and they have produced so much whiskey now that it's like, well, whoops, even in this crazy market, we've got a little more than we need.
Right.
And that's why we're seeing 15-year-old Dickel's and 15-year-old Knob. The other thing that I think happened was they've miscalculated and overshot the pricing for non-age stated products. And now I think bringing the age statements back is a justification for the prices rather than lowering the price. They can put age statements on them. But then think about things like, Blanton's not age stated.
Right.
We think we know it's 8 to 9 years old.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But not having that age statement, as long as it's at least 4 years, the youngest, and that's the way it works. If there's multiple ages, you can age state it only at the youngest of the whiskeys. But not having that age statement means that, maybe it's generally 8 to 9, but they can slide a 5 or 6 year old barrel in there and not have to change anything about how that works.
I mean, I wouldn't even be put off though if it said, 9-year-old with, 5% 5-year-old or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about one of the ones we talk about all the time, Wild Turkey 101, that's generally 6, 7, and 8-year-old whiskeys for $20-something.
Right. It would probably jack up the price if people knew.
Well, but it would severely limit. Think about the size of those batches.
Yeah.
When they get ready to construct a release of, and they don't really talk about releases, it's ongoing. Right. But when they get ready to do that, you're talking about thousands of barrels.
Yeah.
And to be stuck trying to have thousands of barrels of a 7-year-old whiskey matters. And they could do what you said. They could easily say this is 20% 6-year-old, 70%, and 10% 8, whatever.
Yeah.
And funny thing though, a couple of years ago when the what's the Matthew McConaughey Long Branch?
Long Branch, yeah.
When that came out, Matthew and Eddie Russell decided 8-year-old Wild Turkey bourbon was just right for what they were doing.
One, yeah.
And they didn't have enough 8-year-old for the 6, 7, and 8-year-old for the 101. And so that year, which was, I think, 2019, they used a bunch of 9-year-old. So that year we were buying Wild Turkey 101 that had 9-year-old whiskey in it.
Awesome.
So I don't know. I go back and forth. As long as I like the whiskey, I'd rather have age statements on everything for sure. But I do like the flexibility it gives them so that I always have something good to drink.
I guess, if it comes down to like, I don't know, age stated versus like a quality bottle, I'll just choose the quality bottle.
But we don't, the problem is we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I will say this last little sip of Woodford that I just had was pretty pleasant. I mean, it's smooth.
It's better today than it was to me yesterday.
Yeah. Sure. It's not like a bowl me over. I wouldn't run out and buy it, but it was nice.
I'm just glad today it seems drinkable because yesterday it did not seem drinkable.
And that happens a lot with our bottles. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. Should we do this blind break?
Let's do the blind break.
All right. This is the blind break. So this is a truly blind break.
And not purposeful.
Yeah. So here's how this happens. So we have our whiskey nights, and generally speaking, we have too many bottles out. And by the end of the night, Mark and I are like, what do you want to take? What do you want to take? Take samples. And one night you brought some scotch, and I thought that my wife had asked you for a sample of Bunnahabhain.
Because what happens is we do all these samples, we're a little bit drunk, and we don't label the bottles.
Right. And so this bottle has no label on it. It's a 2-ounce.
It does not.
Yeah, and I thought
it's full though.
It is really full.
I was pouring happy that night.
You were pouring Dan pours that night. But I thought this was the Bunnahabhain. And then I was just looking through my barrel because I was pouring samples for you for our blind shelfie throwdown. And I found another sample in there that is labeled Bunnahabhain.
With my drunk handwriting on it?
No, it's mine.
Your drunk handwriting.
Which is almost illegible, but I can take out the B and then a lot of vowels. So I have no idea what's in this bottle.
Let's see if we can figure it out.
All right. Here, I'm going to rinse. You pour yours because I'm going to rinse my glass out here while you're doing that.
It even had a little when I opened it.
Yeah, this is going back like a year at least. This might be pre-COVID actually, so it might be like a year and a half. In any event, this is
so we don't accidentally spill it.
Yeah,
put the top back on.
Truly blind. Let's see.
I know exactly what that is.
Do you?
No, I do not.
I believed you too. That's how sad that is. All right.
I do know what it is though. It's on the tip of my. Well, it's going to be on the tip of my tongue in just a minute.
And I was wondering if it was maybe just another pour of Bunnahabhain, but this is not Scotch.
That's not Scotch.
This is definitely not Scotch, just by the nose. And it's not a big nose. It's like light cinnamon.
It's big on the tongue, though.
Yeah, what is it?
That's a Jim Beam product.
Yes, I think you're right. Ooh, that's good.
It is good.
That's really good. What is that?
It's too light to be Booker's.
Yeah, and definitely lower proof, I think.
It's too sweet to be. It's too sweet to be Booker's. It's definitely a Jim Beam product, though.
Wow, yeah. It does have a nose similar to a Booker's, but definitely way mellower, which makes me think it's lower proof. I wonder if this is, do you think this might be the distiller's cut?
Yeah,
I think it is.
because it's got that charry note on the front that you sometimes call marshmallows.
Yeah,
I think that's distiller's.
I think it might be.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, we're right. Yeah. We said we're right. We have no way of knowing. I would bet the money that that's a Jim Beam product.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think about all the Jim Beam stuff we've had. The only thing that would have that much proof, but not enough to be Booker's, is that distiller's cut.
Yeah,
It is a little sweet for that, though.
it is. But it's also been in that sample bottle for a long time, and I don't know if that maybe had an effect. I think you're right, though. I think this might be the distiller's cut.
Yeah. It's not a Knob Creek, even though that's a statement, a Beam product. It's not Knob Creek, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that I wouldn't know. I mean, the only thing I can think, well, maybe.
Hey, how long ago was it?
Yeah, because you did have a Knob Creek.
I had the 15 here at some point.
Well, maybe this is the Knob 15.
Yeah, I could buy that. It's delicious.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little too charry on the front for that, though. And it's not enough of the. That's a lot. That's a heavy oak. I don't get too much oak in that.
It's a little hot, too, like across the tongue. So, I mean, I don't know. In not a very subtle way, which I think the distiller's cut was kind of that way.
I think distiller's cut
I'm leaning that way, too. But I think.
because I brought some Old Tub over. That's definitely not Old Tub.
No. I did not cut into Old Tub. It was not my favorite.
All right, let's call it distiller's cut.
All right.
Hell of a blind break.
All right.
We can't be right. We can't be wrong.
But, and yet we were so right because we just had glasses of good whiskey.
There you go. All right, back to the podcast.
All right.
All right, we're back. We got to figure out what to talk about to wrap this thing up.
Well, so I guess here's my next dilemma. So you said at the top of the show, the question was, do we need all these bottles to make us happy whiskey drinkers? And I think the answer is really no. We could certainly be happy. But I will say this.
But
When we started our whiskey nights, I was more into Scotch than I was bourbon. Now I'm way more into bourbon than I am Scotch, but lately I've had the hankering to build a Scotch cordon. And I'll tell you what sparked this. So I finally opened that Lagavulin 16 year, and I think my phone is listening to me because ever since I opened that bottle, everything on Instagram, on the internet is all Scotch. And I was on Instagram, and there's an Instagram account, the Duchess of Isla, and she's a beautiful woman, and she's got this beautiful Scotch collection. And the shtick is she takes photos of herself, or her husband, I think, takes photos of her in this beautiful room that they've created just for their Scotch collection.
Isn't that a neat room?
It's so cool. And I said this to my wife, Rachel. I said, it's like, I would love to have this room, even if the bottles are empty, just to have all those bottles, lining the room and a big comfy chair. And it just made me itch for Scotch. And that Lagavulin 16 is just out of this world and has also gone astronomically high in price. But I kind of want to get back to Scotch. So here's the dilemma. Do I go back on everything I just said and say, I'm going to start building
No, I think the same thing applies, though. So you know enough at this point. You don't need to buy $30 bottles of Scotch. You know what you like. Just so keep on the Lagavulin train.
Well, but that goes back to the notion that when I was drinking a lot of Scotch, I really liked the Macallan 12. It was like a go-to bottle. But drinking a lot of bourbon in the meantime has my palate changed. I could go back into Scotch.
But you don't have to buy 20 bottles to find that out. But you can buy.
Well, what if I want to?
Well, then you certainly can.
Yeah, we got to go to. We just have to go to Scotland.
So the moral of the story is the lip service is we do not need all these bottles to be happy whiskey drinkers, the truth is it's unlikely that we will divorce ourselves of all these bottles.
Yeah. And I think I've actually slowed down quite a bit in terms of bottles that I've bought in the last year. But I also think the price that I've paid per bottle has gone up slightly.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And I don't guess, I know, you know, since I had the year on the budget where I had to keep track, I now keep track of the whiskey.
The dark year. Yeah.
The dark. Was it? Because there was still, I don't drink it near fast enough. There was still a net gain in whiskey bottles the year I put myself on $1,000 budget.
It's true.
And for the record, we're now, this is August. When is it? It's August, mid-August that we're recording this. I've now spent 2.5 times almost what I spent the whole year that year.
Yeah.
But I do think I bought better stuff this year.
Yeah, I do too. I think I definitely bought better bottles, which, you know, really makes me think like, are we being practical? I mean,
I think we are, because we don't, you know, I've never bought a bottle in the second. That's not true. I bought a bottle of the Baby Sazerac for $25 in the secondary market, which is cheaper than retail.
Yeah.
But I never chase a bottle that way.
Yeah.
I have learned to find the good bottles. And yeah, I think if I find, when Eagle Rare started to take off, you know, when I couldn't buy it for 25 regularly anymore, I bought a couple at 30 or 35, and I've got 6 or 7 of those. I've got 8 or 9 of the Henry McKenna 10-year bottle and bonds that my average cost is probably $30 on those.
Sure.
I'm glad I've got 8 or 9 of those. But other than that, you know, I don't think we need to keep stockpiling the stuff. And I think it's better to spend that money on the really enjoyable bottles.
Yeah.
Because we do, I'm not saying I don't drink a lot of whiskey. Clearly I do.
Yeah.
But I don't drink a bunch where, you know, volumes.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking it nearly as fast as I'm buying it. So even if I pull all the way back, I'm still going to have a net gain in bottles every month or two.
Yeah. Well, I think my wife said something pretty telling before our last whiskey night. She said, you know, I said, I should go out and get a bottle for tonight. She's like, we've got a gazillion bottles. Why are you going to go get another bottle? And she said,
damn logic.
Yeah. And she's like, if you're going to go get a bottle of something reliable that, you know, we all like the rare breed. And I said, and then I got excited to buy rare breed, you know, and rare breed's everywhere. Yeah. But I did pick up this rare breed rye, which is not everywhere. But
it is delicious.
It is delicious.
Did I tell you what I did with all the Wild Turkey ryes?
Oh my God. What did you do?
So I lined them all up.
Bring them here and give them to me.
Well, we should do that because I completely got overwhelmed. I lined 5 of them up.
Yeah.
Wild Turkey 101 rye, Russell's Reserve 6-year rye, Wild Turkey Rare Breed rye, Russell's Reserve single barrel rye, and the Master's Keep Cornerstone rye. Yeah. So from 25 to 175.
Yeah.
And I turned the camera on, and I was going, I didn't have anybody with me, so I labeled the bottom on the tape. And then I closed my eyes and I mixed them all up on camera, and then separated them and tried to figure out what was what.
Is this video live? Because I want to watch this.
It was such a cluster.
Oh, man.
I didn't have any idea what I was doing. In 5 minutes in, I couldn't taste anything. You know, I didn't know how to start doing that. Clearly the answer was not just start drinking and see if you can figure it out.
I want to watch it more now.
Well, and no kidding. 5 minutes in, I didn't have any idea. Yeah. And the first thought was, well, if I'm 5 minutes in and I can't tell the difference between a $25 bottle of Wild Turkey rye and a $175 bottle, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I can just buy the $25 bottles.
I bet I could tell the difference between if I started with both of them in front of me.
Yeah, and that's not what I did.
Right.
So I started with 5 glasses in front of me.
That's craziness.
And I'll tell you the result. So when it was all said and done, I was drunk.
Yes.
When it was all said and done, I got the 101 correct. I got the Russell's 6-year correct. And the 3 nicer ones, the Rare Breed, the Russell's Reserve single barrel, and the Cornerstone, I had mixed up.
Too close to tell.
And at first I thought, well, that's terrible. I should have been able to tell. And then as I was watching the video back, I thought, wait a minute.
That's excellent.
I'm all about filtration.
Yeah.
First of all, I correctly got 2 of them, but I did separate the chill filtered from the non-chill filtered.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's something.
Right.
At least that's,
I
get something out of it.
Yeah.
But
it also totally juestifies our podcast, which is that you can buy the
absolutely.
$60.
It is absolutely true. And if I'm not mistaken, here recently in one of the spirits competitions, that 101 rye won medals.
Yeah.
The $25 bottle won medals. So it absolutely justifies and backs up what we say that there's good whiskey.
Yep.
It also says we shouldn't be stockpiling stuff.
Right. Right.
Because I can get that 101 rye
Anytime.
and it hadn't always been the case that you could find that anywhere, but now you can.
Right. Right.
So it was comical, and it was a complete. I don't want to say the S word show, but it was a complete whatever show with me doing.
But I bet it was fun as hell.
I had a blast.
I have a dream that one day I'll have enough bookers that we could just open batches and be like, can we tell the difference? Is there, which one's best? I've always thought this one's better. Is this one better?
Well, we could do that now, but it's a pretty narrow band of
it is.
bottles.
It is, but I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm actually stoked that you did that. I want to see that video.
Yeah, I think it does back up that premise. And as we always say with blind tasting, it takes the bias out of it.
Yeah, it reveals a lot.
It also, you get your ego in check, because even really, forget us, even tenured professional tasters have trouble doing that.
Yeah.
You got to be tasting this stuff blind, or you're really not going to ever know what it tastes like.
Well, and that's the best way to learn your palate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right. This has been good. I hope everybody, rethinks the collection of whiskey, because I do see new people to the hobby. I started my collection in June, and everything in their collection, they could just buy any day of the week.
Yeah, right.
So are you really collecting anything if it's not collectible, if it's easily available? So think about that, because the stuff does cost a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, it does cost a lot of money. All right, this has been fun, Dan. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for coming back to the world headquarters.
It's good to be back in the world headquarters. I wish we could do it more often.
We should.
What's stopping us?
I don't know. It's a long drive. It's a short stumble from my house.
Well, get the sofa ready.
Yeah,
we'll do it more often. All right. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.